For 2023, one of the goals that I set out for myself was to create more content. So in an effort, I'm going to start trying to create these videos probably once a week. I'm thinking every Friday. But for this episode, I'd like to kind of start off with, where I am up to this point. I haven't really spoken much about the in-depth details of my business journey over the past year or so, but I guess I'll go through that. I'll start really back winter is when I really would consider a beginning. And when I speak of my business, for those of you who don't know, I'm speaking to my landscaping company, RJM Landscape. So I began the company last spring. I believe our first job completed was April, probably second weekend of April last year. It was me and one of my employees. And before that, I had spoke with this same employee, and one of the big motivators that I had, along with many other things, is that he said to me, if you want me to work for you, I need it to be full time. And that was really, I would say, a pivotal moment in my business career, because at that moment I felt that it was not just on me, it was also for these people who I was looking to employ. And in order to scale the company and to grow as a company, I knew that I need to have people that I trusted and could rely upon. And, there are numerous times over the summer, whether I was on vacation or whether I had some other appointments I had to attend to, I was able to rely upon these people in order to fulfill the obligations that we had as a company. So backtrack even further to really, get into it. Just to note, these videos are mainly made for people who are looking to join the entrepreneurship space. So it's a person who's looking to build a company. And I'm going to start off kind of detailing my story before, we really started monetizing the company, because I feel like a successful company starts months, years before they actually start making profits. So I would say that in January of 2021, I really, I was going through some things, and I knew that in my heart of hearts, I loved entrepreneurship and I always wanted to build my own company. I actually remember in middle school, kind of just like looking over jobs and being like, oh, what am I going to be when I grow up? And I didn't really know. And then I just stumbled over the word entrepreneurship, and I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe I'll be an entrepreneur one day. And turns out that's exactly what I am. But to detail the story, it began January 2021. I was driving DoorDash, and I didn't really have much going on. I was still in my gap year. I wasn't playing hockey anymore. And pretty much all my day, I would wake up, work out, I'd listen to a podcast, and then around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd go out and I'd drive DoorDash for the rest of the night, probably 2 to 10 every single day. And I would set these goals for myself. I'd try and make $100 every day, so I'd be making $700 a week. And I kind of just kept building and building and pushing as high as I could go, that until I really couldn't go any further. I started making about $1,000 a week. I saved a lot of my money. I would have to pay for gas, but other than that, I really had no expenses. I wasn't going out on the weekends. All my friends were at school. So all of that money I was saving. And now something that I would recommend for entrepreneurs is, every business needs some type of capital to start up. I would start by getting a job, like DoorDash, where, you work on your own hours and you make the amount of money that you want to make, but, you're not really restricted to a schedule or anything. So that worked perfectly for me, because during DoorDash, I was building the capital. Another recommendation, every time that I made money, I would automatically put 50% into a savings account. You can be even more aggressive. I think this summer, or depending on your age, you can be even aggressive as 80% and just save 20. It really depends on where you are in life and, what type of expenses you're experiencing. At that time, I had no expenses, so it made sense for me to do 50%. Looking back, I maybe could have done 80%, but, it worked out well for me. So over those months, I saved up about $10,000, and come that time, I bought two things. I bought blowers and I bought weed whackers, because the summer before I had worked part-time, really 1 or 2 days a week, with a professional landscaper. He's a guy who kind of taught me my roots, and I'm really grateful for that guy. So I learned a lot, and I figured the two things that I really needed to start were blowers and weed whackers. From there, I was able to buy a trailer. From there, I was able to buy a lawnmower, and from there, I just kept, throughout all of last summer, I would say, I really kept reinvesting my money into, scaling the company. But one of the things that I noticed shifted for me during that time is I was able to shift what I believed was possible. So a lot of times, you'll tell people, oh, I made X amount of money, and they won't believe you because you're a certain age, you're a teenager, you're a young adult. And, most everyone who graduates from high school, they make probably between 40 and, at the really high end, maybe $100,000 a year. My company was doing over $100,000 a year, and we only worked 6 months out of the year. So, I was able to shift what I believed was possible, which allowed me to make more money than pretty much everyone else around me. And, that's not to, say, oh, I made this much money. It's to help you to realize what is possible. We're only constrained by what we believe. This is what I've noticed. We're only constrained by what we believe in our mind. So the more that you kind of tap into your mindset and the way that you think about certain things, you'll notice that you have limiting beliefs around certain things. And those limiting beliefs are contributing to the lack that you have, whether it be in business, in your relationships, and whatever it may be. The way that you think about life is really the way that your life is shaping out to be. So that's one thing that I noticed. And I was able to realize this because while I was driving DoorDash for eight or so hours a day, all I would do was listen to podcasts. And a lot of the podcasts I listened to, I would focus on listening to Fortune 500 CEOs, CEOs of Disney, CEOs of Apple, and just listen to what they say and how they think about life. And I think that if you're looking to start as an entrepreneur, one thing that I would recommend is listening to people who have made it to where you're trying to be. Because, they'll just talk about things like subconsciously that they won't even realize but are of value to you. So like one of the things for me, like when I'm making these videos, sometimes it's difficult for me to talk about these things because some of this stuff is just so second nature and I just think that everyone knows it. But when in reality, that's not the case. So what I would do is I would listen to these CEOs and it almost became ingrained in second nature in my head. So I just thought this way and it was normal to me. When I was able to do that, I elevated the standard of money. I elevated the standard of, excellence within my own company. And these things became second nature and they just happened naturally. Another thing that I would recommend is set goals. Even when I was doing DoorDash, I set goals and I realized that, I would set a goal that I thought it might be kind of hard to reach that. I'll probably come up a little bit short. But more often than not, something would happen, like someone would give me a big tip or, I'd get a big job. And I'd always end up hitting those weekly goals that I set out for myself. And this is what manifesting is. I think, manifesting gets this rap around it where it's woo-woo and, not everyone really believes that it works. But for me, it has absolutely worked. I think that you can manifest good things, you can manifest money, you can manifest relationships, and you can also manifest negative things. You can manifest failures. You can manifest losing a client. There are so many things, but it all starts in your head. So I would say, to really be clear, prior to actually doing the landscaping work, the work that I needed to do was on my mind. And I think that that's an ongoing process, but I made a lot of strides during that time, and it really set me up for the rest of that summer. During that summer, we had so many clients. We had over 100 clients that we served. And, looking back on it, we took on essentially every person that came to our door. We would make a deal and we would work for pretty much every person that asked. Going forward, I anticipate taking on a lot more clients and probably continuing to an extent doing something like that. But I also think that as a company, it's much more beneficial from what I've been researching over the past few weeks to curate the perfect customer for you, because when you have the best customer for yourself, you're able to best serve them. So that's something that I think that I will focus on going forward. But, again, in the beginning, the thing that I really focused on was generating revenue and generating capital, because in order to scale the company, in order to grow, you really need to have a lot of capital. And the more that I went on, the more I find myself reinvesting. I'm still reinvesting. I anticipate reinvesting for probably the next year to 3 years, depending on the level that I want to scale. I think that we'll probably acquire some companies within the next 5 years. But focus really on, learning. This past year, one of the biggest things was like, and this is all industry specific to you too, like this is not just a landscaping, but for service based and even product based, that first year, focus on just taking action and getting stuff out there. I think that one of the things that we did well as a company is we took massive action and we did a lot of work. So going into this next year, we have a lot to look back on and a lot that we can realize that we can improve upon. And we learn where our weaknesses are, we learn where we need help. And I think that that was very beneficial because, you can read all the books that you want, you can go to whatever school that you want. You'll never really understand business until you're in it. And I think for me, just taking a lot of action this past year has been super beneficial. In terms of, other things to think about as you're going through a week, really focus on building relationships with clients because, we had to market obviously before we began. So we probably started marketing in, March, and we really only marketed until May. And then we had so many clients that we didn't need to market anymore. And our past clients that we had worked for were actually marketing for us. So they were putting stuff out on Facebook. They were communicating to people. And one of the things that I noticed was that, especially in my industry, there's a lot of competition. And one of the things that you can do to differentiate yourself from the competition is excellent customer service. That's one of the biggest things I've noticed. People really appreciate, even if you can't do a job, if you're getting behind, just communicate and be good with the customer. I think that one of the things I learned is in order to be successful as a company, you can't be focused on profits, but you need to be focused on solving a problem for a customer. That's also something that you should keep in mind as a young entrepreneur looking to start out. Don't go into the industry where you think you can make the most money. Go into the industry where you believe you have the expertise to solve a problem that someone has. This is literally exactly what Varna Seva translates to, solving a problem that the world has. When you're able to solve a problem that someone has, they're going to be appreciative for that, but there's also, the money will come. The more that you focus on things, the more they come to you. If you chase things, however, they run away from you. I've seen this numerous times in my life, whether it be business opportunities or, whether it be with friends and like social events. The more that you chase things, the more that they run away. But if you focus on your inner energy and the stuff and the energy that you're giving off around you and focus on the fundamentals. So for me, I was focusing on providing excellent quality service. I was focusing on communicating with customers. This is when I found myself to be most successful. So really focus on the process rather than the end goal. But, always have that end goal in mind, but don't become over fixated on it. I think that that's something that you can do to become really successful. One of the challenges, tying into that is dealing with customers. All customers are not going to be great to work with. We had a couple customers who, they didn't pay their dues. And, this is something that you need to deal with. But again, this is, as you are starting out, I think this is part of the process. I think as we go forward, we'll sort of, smooth out that process so we don't face as many of these issues. But again, that's something that we faced. I'd like to hear from you guys and what you're wondering more. I think that I can talk quite a bit about, really starting out. I would say that my top 3 recommendations for you that as you're starting out is 1, take action. 2, be reflective on what you're doing and really have you cannot even have a hard written notebook. Just be conscientious of things that are going well and things that you need to improve and, focus really on the process. I think for me, the next 3 years, I'm really going to be focusing on the processes and nailing the processes down. We did really well this past year, but I honestly don't think that we're even 30% of the way that I believe that we can get to in the coming years. There's so many aspects of it which I'll delve into in later episodes, but I hope this was a good start for you all. I'd love to hear, things that you may have questions on, things that you want to know more about, and I will look forward to talking to you again next week. Thank you for listening. If you found value, I'd love if you could share this with a friend. Thank you.